think we'll start now. So thank you all so much for joining us this evening for tonight's Radiotherapy UK Talks, What Matters to Patients? Important conversations about life, death, and everything in between. Sponsored by AstraZeneca. So a really warm welcome to you all. And although this is a series built for the workforce, we very much welcome anyone who has had cancer or is going through treatment or diagnosis who has joined us tonight. Last year's talks about new developments and innovations were immensely popular and are available to view on our website. And this year, thanks to your feedback, our theme is enhancing patient experience. So I'm Sarah Quinlan, the Director of Radiotherapy UK, and we are the only charity in the country advocating specifically for this life-saving, cost-effective, curative treatment, the patients that receive it and the workforce that delivers it. With your support and through our award-winning Catch Up with Cancer campaign, we're here to create change at the highest level. And I have two updates for you all after the presentation. So I'm joined here tonight by Lindsay and by Alison from our team who are going to help run the session. Lindsay worked as a therapeutic radiographer for many years and will be helping with the questions section later this evening. And Alison is going to be looking after the chat. So tonight's guest speakers have some fascinating insights to share on how healthcare professionals have a unique opportunity to have transformational conversations with patients about subjects that we're really not always that culturally comfortable with. So these can include living with an incurable disease, planning for advanced care, and the sometimes surprising requests for support as people consider the end of their life. Our first speaker is Jean Fisher. Jean is a lead facilitator in advanced communication skills training and experienced palliative care nurse, working with senior clinicians to deepen their communication skills. We'll also be welcoming Debbie Donnison, who will share her own experience of a stage 4 diagnosis and her thoughts on meaningful conversations, our reluctance to talk about death and advanced care, and the wider patient perspective. So some very quick housekeeping just before we start. Please do use the chat function to introduce yourself and for any comments or questions that you might have. This is such a good opportunity to engage with each other and with our speakers. And we will also be having question and answer sessions after Jean and Debbie have both spoken. And we'd also really appreciate it if you could comment in the chat with your main takeaway after each guest. So without any further delay, please welcome Jean Fisher.
Thank you very much. For somebody who does facilitate communication skills, I regret I have laryngitis. However, let's go for it and see what we can do. So if we could have the first slide, please, that would be great.
Sorry, everyone, we've just had a slight technical difficulty in that Lindsay's internet's gone down. So I'm just going to pull up your, oh, is she back?
Oh.
I think Lindsay's trying to screen share. If not, I'm going to put the presentation on mine and we'll work through it.
You could talk amongst yourselves.
Yes, sorry, we've had a few technical.
Can you see the screen?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, that's me. We don't need to know anything else about me. Right, so what we're going to do, what I'm going to do with the next 15 minutes is have a think about, next point please. Thinking about how we build relationships with the patients we care for and how we can use every opportunity we have with them. And the next point, please. Better conversations, more meaningful conversations. Sometimes those are conversations that are a bit scary. And the next point, please. So that means sometimes we have to be brave. We have to be willing to go into tricky areas if that's what this person with us wants to do. And remembering the privilege that that is, because if you're the person that the patient has chosen to have a conversation with, that means they trust you. And the next point, please. And the bottom line is, if we show that what matters to them matters to us, then any conversation is going to be more meaningful. And the next slide, please. So how are we going to do that? It's all about the cues and clues. It's all about asking them how they are. I really like how are things, because that is the most open question you could ever ask. And quite often they'll say fine. Well, what does fine mean? What does fine mean today? And then thinking about other questions you might ask them about how best you could help. Picking up on the little cues. What do they sound like? What do they look like? If you go out to fetch them from the waiting room, what cues and clues are you picking up at that point? And how do you mirror what they are giving you in terms of their style, their stance, their approach to a conversation? And always asking, is there something you'd like to ask about or talk about? And being brave to do that, even if you think, I won't have a clue what the answers are going to be if you ask me something. Next slide, please. Do give them space and pauses. This is your homework, everybody. Everybody hates a vacuum. And so when we go into a conversation with patients, quite often we'll just waffle and fluff and keep waffling, fluffing, and possibly speaking really, really fast because we are scared of the pause. We're scared of what they might say within a pause. So it's just easier not to have one. But what you've got to bear in mind is it won't be a pause for them, because what they're doing within a bit of quiet time is thinking, she's asked me, he's asked me, do I have something to ask? Do I have something I want to talk about? And I need to think now, do I want to ask them? Do I want to hear the response? Do I trust them enough to ask them? How am I going to phrase this thing that I want to ask them about? So those pauses are crucially important. And when you don't know how to do a pause, just keep practicing it, okay? And when you get to the point when you're thinking, I've got to say something now, I've got to say something now, can't possibly wait, just count to 3 in your mind. And if you are going to say something, is there something going through your mind that you would like to speak about? And it's really important we are prepared to hear those tough or unexpected things, and that we're willing to be there. The reason I came into palliative care, I worked in an acute plastic surgery unit. We had a 14-year-old. It wasn't a children's ward, but he wouldn't go to the children's ward. He'd got a melanoma and he'd got something going on. I took him for a brain scan because he was too sick for me to think that anyone else should go. The following day, when he came to, he said, "Sister, did you see that brain scan?" And in my heart, I was thinking, oh, please don't ask me. Please don't ask me what I saw. I don't want to have to tell you this. So I said, well, yes, I did see it. And my heart was sinking. And then after a little pause, he said, I don't suppose you really understood it, did you? And to this day, I don't know if he saw something in my face that made him think this is bad and I don't want to hear it, whether he was just letting me off the hook or whether he genuinely thought that I wouldn't have the real knowledge. But what I said to him was, you're right, I wouldn't be able to say I understood it all, but if you want to talk about it, we could talk about it with your mum and dad and with Mr. Summerlad. That was the consultant. He never asked the question again. So I think probably my face gave a message. It taught me a valuable lesson to be expecting anything. Please, can we have the next slide? Keep going. Okay, these have gone out of order, but really important that we think about communication as a cake. Can you put that? Thank you. So we've got language, we've got paralanguage. That's the way we say what we say. And we've got our non-verbals. And I have to tell you, the actual words we use are the blackberries on that cake, or the almonds on the top of the Dundee cake. They're only about 7% of what we transmit. So I think that's really helpful to remember, because when I open my mouth and the biggest load of squid comes out, the chances are, if my tone, pace, pitch of voice are right, not like they are tonight actually, but right, and if my non-verbal messaging is congruent with my verbal messaging, then the message I convey will be about right. And if the words aren't quite right, it'll be okay. I hope that makes some sense. I looked for ages, I have to tell you, for cakes with an appropriate about 7% of a particular ingredient on the top that would fit with something called Morabian's rule. You can look it up if you want to. Next slide, please. So the crucial thing is remembering listening is much more important than speaking. Could we have the next little bit of the slide? Oh, okay. So we were given 2 eyes, 2 ears, and only 1 mouth. So use them proportionately and always anticipate anything. We talk in palliative care about rainy day thinking, rainy day planning. Be prepared for anything, because you never know when you're going to need an umbrella or indeed a parasol. We've had some parasol weather this week. So it's about being prepared. Could we have the next slide, please? Okay, so Lindsay particularly asked me to include this example from my clinical practice in palliative care. So I was looking after this lady as part of the team. She was 83, she was dying, she was very close to death. She was being cared for in the hospice where I was working. And she said to me one morning, I need to see my solicitor. Could you get in touch with my solicitor? I really need to see him today. And I said, of course, yeah, I can ring them. Do you feel able to tell me something about what you want to speak to your solicitor about so that they come appropriately prepared? And she said, I want to file for divorce. And I was a bit taken aback, because that really was pretty unexpected. I thought she was going to say something about changing her will or whatever. I want to file for divorce. I want him to know how miserable I have been in this marriage for a very long time. And I know I will not live to the end of the process of a divorce, but I want him to get that letter. I want him to be served the papers so he knows I want a divorce. So be prepared for anything. I've been in nursing nearly 50 years. That's the only time in my career I've ever had a conversation like that. So don't anticipate that's going to be common, but we have to be prepared for anything. Can we have the next bit of the slide, please? And we also have to remember, because I can hear in your minds, you're thinking, oh yes, but she's worked in a hospice. They've got hours of time with everybody. And it's not like that for us. We've got people coming in and out all the time, and we've got X number of people to see in a day. Time is not a question of length. It's a question of depth. It's a question of really paying attention 100% to this person in front of you right now. You might only have 5 minutes, 10 minutes with them, but that 5 or 10 minutes could be a game changer for that person. It could be the only time they say the thing that's most important for them to say, or express a question or an emotion that they haven't trusted to speak out loud. You might be the person they've chosen. So go for it. And keep your mouth shut, which is what I'm now going to do. I think that's my last slide. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jean. That's absolutely fascinating, and some really, really interesting tips there to be able to take away, especially like the 1, 2, 3 whenever you want to talk, because I think you always have an urge to fill silence. So that's a really helpful thing. Thank you so much for that. If I can hand on now to Debbie.
Hi there. Hello, everybody. I've been introduced, but just to give you, just to say one thing about Jean's presentation. I do swear that we did not prepare these presentations together, but so much of what Jean said, I think you'll find is reflected in what I'm going to say. I don't know much about palliative care. I'm still learning, but I can only speak from my own experience, and I'm fairly new to it. So I was diagnosed with metastatic breast cancer. Well, in fact, I was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer in December 2022. And then I spent 3 months trying to find out exactly what cancer I had, which turned out to be metastatic breast cancer. And I started treatment in February 2023. So I'm just one person who is knows that my cancer is incurable, knows that at some point I'll die with it. So at some point it will kill me. Hopefully that won't be very soon. It will be much later, but I don't know, because I just don't know. And nobody knows, nobody can tell me that. Obviously this presentation is from my perspective, but I have tried to canvass other people's views, and it actually has been women. So I haven't asked men, because there are men who get metastatic breast cancer, but I haven't heard from any. Also, and so they will tell me, they've told me about best approaches, and I've had to sort of pull back a bit on some of I've got very strong ideas about various things. So I'm going to try and be broad-based with this, and not just give my own views. I will give a warning. I cry a lot. I'm just one of those people that's got leaky eyes all the time, and particularly since I've had this diagnosis. I also do have a weepy eye. So if you see me wiping tears away, just ignore me. It annoys me if I cry, because it stops me speaking, but it's just how it is. And I'm apologizing, but I don't really apologize for it, because it's just who I am. I cry every time I go into a hospital. So there we go. And I think when I spoke to women with metastatic breast cancer, we all agreed on some things, and one was that it was always appreciated when someone is trying to do their best for you, because that comes through. And it's something a bit about what Jean said about it's not always what you say either. and we just need to know that people care. So thank you all for listening. Those people that listen to it later, it just shows me that you care. Okay. So I've just split into 2 or 3 common themes, and I'll try and speak fast because I'm probably going to go over and you're all going to say, come on, I've got to go and watch the footy or something. Couple of 2 or 3 fit themes. The first theme really is about listening, and that came through loud and clear on Jean's presentation. Please listen. Most people I spoke to said that it was really important. It made them feel worth it. I think sometimes you sort of don't feel worth it because you've got a cancer that is a drain on resources. I feel it every time I go into a hospital. I always seem to be at the GP practice. And we also feel that people won't fight for us. So when you listen and you show you care, it makes a massive difference. Certainly does to me. And again, don't be too ready to, in terms of listening, don't be too ready to give solutions unless we ask for one. Because it sort of feels a bit dismissive if you sort of say, oh God, you know, I'm just sick of my hair falling out, or, oh, have you tried? It's like, you know, go away with your problems. Have you tried this? And this is what you need to do. Jean said this, and I promise we didn't collaborate. Ask what fine means. I often say, yeah, how are you? Fine, thanks. I never am fine, really, not when I'm in a hospital setting, never, because I think about what's happening to me every single day, and I'd be lying if I didn't. I'm a happy, fairly resilient person, but I think about death every day. It's just one of those things. And don't try and shy away from difficult subjects. I haven't really had much success when broaching difficult subjects. I like to confront things head on. And when I've sometimes broached, you know, what will happen to me when I approach death, I haven't really had a good answer to that, quite honestly. I've Googled it in the end, and I've seen some very good graphics on it. So now I understand what happens when you start to die. I've even had people say, oh, don't say that, when I've said, oh, well, you know, because I joke about if I ever get a referral for my eye, I'll probably be dead before that happens, because I joke a lot about things like that. And they go, oh, don't say that. Well, I might actually be dead before I get a referral for my eye, but there you go. My oncologist tells me, and I will talk about him later, but my oncologist says to me, and I do like him, but he just says, oh, it's very difficult to die, Debbie. And I would beg to disagree on that one. Another area is, and please, if you think I'm going to go talk for too long, please stop me, won't you? But is language. There are loads of pitfalls with language. Oh my God, I'm an ex-linguist. I'm a Spanish and Portuguese speaker, and I've studied linguistics. So it's quite a thing for me, but actually it turns out it's quite a thing for everybody else too. Language can alienate. The thing is, you don't know which language will alienate, so you need to tread carefully. And something about what Jean said, which was mirroring language. I'll give you an example. I hate the terminology passing away. Drives me at the wall, hate it. I prefer to say death and dying. But of course, I've spoken to lots of women who say, oh, I don't like people saying I'm dying. I like passing away. And I think, yeah, and that's a bit about listening to the person, mirroring what they say rather than choosing your own terminology all the time. That said, use correct language when explaining about illness. If people need an explanation about it, or find your way a bit, if people need an explanation, they can always ask. But test. You can sort of test when you're talking to people what sort of level of information they will want, that sort of thing. And if I ask a question, I want the answer. I am ready for the answer. I will not ask a question that I do not want the answer to. So, for example, I will never ask the question, because nobody can tell me anyway, how long do you think I've got? I don't want the answer to that question. and actually nobody, I don't think anybody can tell me. But when I say, what are my blood results? And I get the answer, fine. I think, yeah, well, that would be a first, wouldn't it? Because my creatinine levels are always sky high for good reasons, but so my bloods aren't fine. So therefore, I don't trust you anymore because you just said they're fine, and they won't be. So I always say, what kind of fine will, as in, if I say I'm fine, what kind of fine are you? How fine are you? There's very little about life and death that I haven't considered. So there's not really anything that you're gonna shock me with. I spent 3 months wondering whether I was going to be dead within a month. And so I considered every single aspect of my life and whether I was going to die soon or not, and whether I was ready for that. Coming on to, I wanted to talk about platitudes. I think you'll enjoy this because I did, but it might just be because I like language. I'm thankful to an organisation called RTUK UK, which campaigns for people with secondary breast cancer. And I'm not doing a splurge for them, but it's just I happened to get this information from them. And they talked to lots of people. They were English and German speaking. And that's important, actually. And they asked them about language, and they asked them about different things. What things were more towards the negative side? What things were more towards the positive? I'll read them out to you because they're lovely. Now, these are all the negative ones. I will finish with the positive ones. But so things on lifestyle. Oh, when people say to you, these are comments people say to you. So my brother died of that. Great, that's good to know. I'm sure you'll be fine. Oh, thanks. I'm pleased about that. Getting cancer is my biggest fear. And you sort of want to say, oh, thanks for sharing that. So it was one of mine too, but here we are. You could get run over by a bus. Hate that one. I'm standing in the bus lane and I think about being run over every day. Unless you're in my shoes, please don't say you could get run over by a bus. You can kill cancer by eating, I don't know, snake oil, eating sugar, by avoiding alcohol. I have got a glass of raspberry cordial here. It would be a glass of wine, but I've got blood tests tomorrow and I'm trying to be a goody two-shoes with my liver. When will your treatment end? Well, when I die, thanks. Everything happens for a reason. Nice. So was it because someone hated me that I've got cancer? I don't know. Don't worry. Okay, I won't. You can fight this. Yeah, all right. Think positive. Well, I suppose it's not such a bad thing, and perhaps I don't feel about that as negatively, but it can feel a bit galling. You're strong, you're brave. Thing is, I thought I was strong and brave, but when I got this, I realised I really wasn't. I was actually scared. Get well soon. I'll try. And people who say I couldn't handle it. No, I can't either, but never mind. It's only hair, it will grow back, or at least you haven't lost your hair. You don't look sick. Now, I don't mind that one. I like it when people say I look well because I want to be well. And words like survivor, fighter, warrior, sufferer, brave. Some people don't mind those, some people do. But the positive ways of approaching this is to say things like, that must be very difficult. I can't imagine what you're going through. That always makes me cry when people say that. I'm sorry you're going through this. I hope this treatment will work. We go through a series of treatments with incurable cancer. Can I give you a hug? I had the nicest healthcare assistant when I was having a liver biopsy. I was petrified because I'm a right wuss. She knew I was kind of a bit hyperventilating, if I'm honest. And she said, can I give you a hug? Now, normally I go, no, you cannot. You can go away from me. I'm not a huggy person. And much to my surprise, I said, yes, please. And she drew the curtains and gave me a big hug, and that was lovely. So nice. Would you like to talk about it? How are you feeling today? Can I support you by whatever it is? I did say at the beginning that this was for English and German speaking. It was a survey done of 250 people. And over a third of the people, of the German speaking people, said that they were more likely to say what they found annoying. I bet you wouldn't be able to guess the English speaking people, but only 16% of English speaking people said they would say what they found annoying for somebody. I thought that was quite interesting. It's a difference, I think, and you do get that in different cultures. And sort of the last point before I come to finish, you'll be pleased to hear, is appointment delays. Appointment delays are seemingly inevitable. I spend a lot of time, as do many people who have got an incurable illness. You spend a lot of time in hospital just waiting, and you're only going to, whatever you're in there for, often only takes 20 minutes or so, but you're there for 3 hours, and it really is frustrating. It makes me feel like a victim, makes me feel tearful, makes me feel that I am dying. And you're spending all that time in hospital, having been told to go out and live your life. And it just, honestly, I'm always respectful of people, and I'm never rude, but sometimes it's really hard. So if you are in that situation, which I imagine many of you are, and my heart goes out to you, just try and show you care just a bit, because it's so disempowering and it's so horrible. Because some people I spoke to said they went from one appointment that was delayed to the next appointment that was in a different town even. That's what we're dealing with, and sometimes you think you're spending more time in hospital than you are living. So just to finish, in conclusion, really, think about the whole person, involve us in your decisions and conversations, show you care. I often feel that I'm compartmentalized into body parts and not the one person, because they're looking at one bit of my body because it's a bit of cancer's gone rogue. Or build trust and rapport and relationships. You can do that in 5 minutes if you listen and you show you care. It doesn't need to be, an hour every Thursday. It can just be in those 5 minutes. It's how you speak. Often, after all I've said about language, it is how you speak often and not what you say. It's how you make people feel. People never forget that. And give hope. Don't be like the doctor that when I asked what the lesions on my liver and my spine were, this was 8 o'clock in the evening. I just had a CT scan. And I said, what are those lesions on? What does that mean? Because I didn't know at this point that I had cancer. And she said, well, it's obviously cancer. And off she went. And she left me there just before Christmas, telling me that. I did say during my talk that my oncologist said it's hard to die. But he says that in the context of caring, being honest with me. He knows now that I've got 20 questions to ask, and I need 20 questions answering, because if I don't get the answer to them, I'll ask them the next time. They just roll over, a bit like the lottery, except not quite as good. He gives me every bit of information I need, and he tells me every single time to be positive in a good way, and tells me how many treatments I've got left, and he tells me I am very well. Sorry, that's not me crying, that's just my eye weeping. That's it. Thank you all for attending. Hope it's been informative, and I hope I haven't talked on for too long.
Oh, definitely not, Debbie. That is just so wonderful. Thank you so much for that really powerful insight in from the patient's perspective. And thank you for speaking to other patients as well and taking on their perspectives and bringing that.
They've all got a lot to say.
And as well as the insight as the whole person, it's also just really helpful to have some of those tips, again, the things that are, really good to say, because it's the starter for 10. It's whenever you don't know what to say, to have a few things in your back pocket to be like, well, actually, this is a good way to approach these conversations. So absolutely wonderful. Thank you so much. I think we have questions now, so I'm going to pass over to Lindsay, and she's going to run through some questions.
Hi, got a few questions. I'm going to start off asking Jean. We've got what training can be accessed? Because obviously you do a bit of training yourself, don't you? So if anyone out there was thinking about, you're on mute just before you answer, Jean. If anyone's thinking about they want to know more or they want to learn more around this subject to be able to talk to people, what's available, what's out there?
Probably more than you think, but only in certain places. The course that I'm part of was originally a national programme, but there aren't now many places in the country offering it. I think somewhere honourable and ancient in London may still do a one-day course specifically for therapeutic radiographers. Certainly in my experience in Gloucestershire, Herefordshire, Worcestershire and parts around and about, we're seeing increasing numbers of radiotherapy staff coming to our advanced communication skills training. And I find that really exciting, because I think you're in a prime position to have some really important conversations. I'm very happy to put my email address in the chat. Then if anybody wants to get in touch to find out more about that course, you're welcome to do so. And if anybody is interested in having a course in their locality, then we could look at that as an option. So our courses are in-depth, experiential, using actors, 2 days, pretty intense, but the feedback is very positive. I've done little bits of things for people as well, short, bite-sized chunks, but bite-sized chunks is only a starting point, really.
Amazing, thank you. I think, well, maybe we can put together some resources that you would use or point people to. We can always put that with a recording on the website if we need to. Thanks, Jean. Another one for you. Do difficult conversations get easier with practice, and what do we do if we make a mistake?
The mistake that you make is by not taking the opportunity to have the conversation. Almost nothing else is a mistake, because, as Debbie said very clearly, if you demonstrate that you're genuinely caring, even if the biggest load of nonsense comes out of your mouth and you have to say, oh, hang on, no, I didn't mean that. What I meant to say was this. The fact that you're really paying attention and really listening is very helpful. And does it get easier? Well, as I said, I've been in nursing practice for nearly 50 years now. Clearly, I was only in nappies when I started. Does it get easier? Some things get easier, but you can still be taken by surprise. And as those examples I shared demonstrated, they can have a big impact on us. It's just about being brave, really.
Being present.
The more you do it, the more comfortable you get, I think.
Lovely, thanks, Jean. Debbie, I've got one for you now. can you give us an example of like when something, like when a communication or conversation was really, really good, when it sort of worked away and you came away going, I feel really satisfied with that? I suppose you might have already kind of alluded to that when you talked about your consultant a little bit, really.
Yeah, I can. In fact, dentistry is quite important to me. I've had some terrible experiences in getting my diagnosis because I needed a dentist, and anyway, that was difficult. But I got a new dentist, and he made me feel wonderful. It was, as you know, when you go into a dentist, you're not in there for too long. But he was so lovely. He was very interested in what I had and how he needed to take care of me, and take care of my teeth. And do you know, I was on cloud nine. I mean, I'd been to the dentist, for God's sake, and I'd had some stuff done. He said, I can do all of that now, save you coming back. He was thinking about my appointments, thinking about the impact on me if I had to come back, and let alone the problems with my mouth. And it was just lovely. And I've had that in lots of different settings. I've had, having scans. I've had people just take time. They've taken time and they've listened to me. And I have anxieties about cannulas. I pass out when I get a cannula. So I have to lie down, and people take time and check that I'm all right the whole way. I know that's part of, healthcare, but it's not always. People can be quite brusque, because you know what good is when you see it.
I've got another one for you here. When you felt depressed, how have you managed it, and have you managed to access sort of help available?
Yeah, easily? I've had some pretty low times when I thought before I got a proper diagnosis. I've used helplines as Macmillan Breast Cancer Now, have helplines. I've cried at my GP. I think I cried on the phone to my GP more often than I don't want to admit. But also Macmillan provide a psychology service. I've accessed it twice. Basically, I just cried a lot. Just needed somewhere else to cry rather than burdening my partner. There are lots of support groups out there. I think as time's gone on, because I'm just getting on with it, it gets easier, funnily enough. And I think it's coming to terms with I'm not scared of death anymore at all. I'm scared of dying. And so I think just talking about it, talking about death with actually anybody who'll listen, and my fears is just, I bored myself with it, which is good. It's good to get bored of talking about death and dying sometimes. So yeah, there's a lot of support out there.
Wonderful, thank you. That are all the questions that have been posted. So thank you very, very much.
Thank you so much, Jean and Debbie. I mean, just such a powerful and insightful 45 minutes as well, which is absolutely fantastic. I think there's two things within this as well. I really like the part about remembering the privilege of being able to have these conversations whenever you're in a healthcare profession. That is the ability to support patients and talk to them and care for them through some of those challenging times in their lives. It is a privilege. And thank you so much, Debbie, as well, for highlighting what does matter to patients, because that's what we wanted to achieve tonight. That idea of let's hear from people who experienced this, both with their lived experience and their professional experience, and pull together some information and some really valuable insights for the workforce. So thank you so much. And thank you so much to our audience tonight too for really excellent questions and engagement. And please remember to leave a comment with your one takeaway from tonight in chat. As I said at the start, I just wanted to give a few headline updates from what we're doing at Radiotherapy UK at the minute. So we're just 1 week away from the start of our Miles for Radiotherapy 2024. Huge thanks to your sponsors, AXREM, Leo Cancer Care, and Radioderm, and Joe and Naman from the Rad Chat podcast for joining us as media partners. We are hearing of some fantastic events being created, including a community swim. And you may have seen that we are hopefully holding an in-person event at the Rishworth Trail races in West Yorkshire on July 21st. We have a number of free places for that. So if anyone would like to come and do the 3-mile option with us, Alison is our runner in the team. She'll be doing 10 miles if anybody is up for that. But I think the rest of us will be taking on the 3-mile trail run / walk / potter along the trail. But it'd be a lovely way to meet some people and also hopefully to make some memories. And then this year's Miles for Radiotherapy is in aid of our campaign, which is Catch Up with Cancer. And this is such an important time, and nobody's going to have missed that we are in the middle of election and campaigning. And this is a really crucial moment for us to impress upon a new government that cancer treatment is in crisis and that we urgently need change to happen. We have thousands of people waiting too long for cancer treatment, and we know this leads to poor outcomes. There are millions without access to radiotherapy. We hear and we see on the ground the workforce shortages and the skilled professionals that are leaving because of the lack of being valued, and it's such tough working conditions at the minute. And our campaign is actually the loudest and the longest campaign there is on these issues. And we have now got over more than 600,000 supporters on our change.org petition. And by supporting Miles Radiotherapy, you're fueling our efforts to keep cancer in the spotlight. And we do know it's having an impact. 2 years ago, we couldn't get any decision maker to take an interest in the 62-day treatment target or radiotherapy. And now we're seeing it referenced in political manifestos. Both the Liberal Democrats and the Labour have highlighted the need for 62-day waits. And it does show that the work that we are doing, the amplifying of patients' voices, the bringing people into Westminster and the sitting down and explaining what this actually looks like on the ground for cancer patients is having an impact. But please join us and help us keep up the pressure at a really key moment. So on that note, I would just like to thank you all for your support and wish you all a wonderful evening. I hope you enjoy the rest of your evening. Thank you so much. And once again, thank you so much, Jean and Debbie. Good night.
Debbie and Jean, I don't know if you want to just stay on for a couple of